Hi, Australia and New Zealand. I'm Lauren James. I'm a young adult science fiction author. I've written The Loneliest Girl in the Universe, about a girl alone in space, The Quiet at the End of the World, about two teenagers who are the youngest humans on the planet, and The Reckless Afterlife of Harriet Stoker, which is about ghosts trapped in a university building together. And my upcoming release is Green Rising, which is a climate change thriller. Green Rising is about a group of teenagers who discover that they have a power which lets them grow plants from their skin, and they use this to fix climate change and rewild the planet, and kind of as a form of activism to protest what is happening in the world in response to the climate crisis. So it's about standing up for what you believe in and using what power you have collectively and individually to make a difference to the world, and about the importance of nature and plants. So Green Rising is told from the point of view of Hester, who is the daughter of a oil tycoon businessman who owns a lot of the oil fracking drills in the ocean, and Theo, who is the son of a working class fisherman and his wife in the UK, who is really struggling to make an income in a time when there's not many fish left in the sea, particularly because Hester's company has just unleashed a new oil drill in the area, which is scaring away a lot of the fish. So the 2 points of view are really different, and Hester and Theo have a really different point of view on climate change and what's going on in the world in terms of fossil fuels and the ocean. And so it was really interesting writing their perspectives, because you got to see like very, very stark differences, which they're not necessarily aware of. They kind of assume that everyone else in the world feels the same way as them. So it was really interesting to write. A big thing that I'd not done before as well was one of the characters is American and one of them is British. So I had to kind of really lean into how the way people speak changes depending on their nationality. Even when obviously on a page you can't see their accents, it still affects how they think and the kind of phrases they use. So that was a lot of fun to play with and experiment with. So I really enjoyed, yeah, having these two perspectives of these two conflicting people who don't necessarily get on very well, and you get to see how much they disagree with each other and go back and forth and see them fighting about it. So that was a lot of fun. So I really started writing it because I studied chemistry and physics at uni, and so for decades now I've been learning about climate change since I was like really young, since I was in primary school basically, and they would always present these solutions about how we can fix it, and it's been really frustrating seeing that not happen, and nothing really changing in society, even though like the solutions have been there for many years at this point. So what I really wanted to do was just kind of explain why climate change is still an issue and why it doesn't feel like it's been fixed, even though we've known what to do about it for many years. And it's kind of a really difficult topic to take on, because it's a very politicized topic, really, talking about why institutionally the world is set up with capitalism working to not stop climate change. So I did a lot of research. I think I read about 20 or 30 non-fiction books on climate change to try and kind of make sure that I was not getting anything wrong, because it felt like it was really important to get all the angles and do this properly. So the big thing I'd like to take readers to take from it is just to really think about climate change and see it as a solution that can be fixed and should be fixed. It's a solvable problem. And if you're the kind of person who feels really scared and anxious about the state of the world, and feels really helpless about what you could do about it, you shouldn't feel that way, because this is something that if we work together we can fix. And I hope that reading it is a very positive, uplifting experience, because it's kind of laying out a roadmap of what needs to come next, regardless of whether we have plant magic or not. These are all things that we can do to stop climate change, and we should be doing. This was so hard because obviously I really love all of my characters so much. Like I create people that I want to hang out with because that's why I like writing about them. I just want to spend time on the page with them. But I think that my favorite character is Rima from The Reckless Afterlife of Harriet Stoker. So this is about a group of teenagers who are trapped in a building together after they died, and they're just living for eternity as ghosts. And they all have these different powers. Like some of them can hypnotize people, some of them can turn into animals. Like really interesting, weird stuff. And one of the characters, Rima, is just she's the most fun person I could imagine spending an eternity with, was basically how I created her character. And so I think she'd be the best to go on a road trip with. She'd come up with amazing games, she'd have like an amazing soundtrack that was full of Disney and ABBA and all sorts of stuff. She tells a lot of jokes. Like she is not going to bore you with, like, all of her anecdotes are really fun and exciting. And also she's kind of like the mum friend, so she'd be like making sure that everyone was safe and that nothing was going to go wrong, and she'd probably be looking after the maps and planning the route. So yeah, I think I would want to go on a road trip with Rima. So I've written a book about the end of the world, which is The Quiet at the End of the World. And it's basically a look at what happened if there was a pandemic where a virus meant that humans couldn't conceive anymore. So they stopped having babies immediately, and it's about like the youngest children alive on the planet. So that would definitely be the one I do not want to happen, especially having now lived through a pandemic. I definitely don't want that to become a reality. When I wrote that, there was no sign of what was to come, and it's been really scary looking back at the book and seeing like how much of what I wrote has actually happened. Luckily it hasn't affected having babies, which is quite nice. And then in terms of what I would most like to become a reality, Green Rising definitely was something like that I was writing as like, this is the future I want, where we actually fix climate change and humans behave properly and well and in a way we can be proud of. But I don't necessarily think I would want us to have magical powers to do that. I think I would like to be hopeful enough to think that we can do that without that. So I'm going to say that the one I want most to happen is The Loneliest Girl in the Universe, because I would love to be alive at a time when we're establishing a colony on a new planet and we're sending off a group of astronauts on a long journey that might take decades, and then being able to watch them set up a new home for humanity among the stars. I think that would be really cool. And in the book, it doesn't necessarily go very well. There's a lot of things that go wrong in that journey, but I think that in a better version of that book, that would be a really nice feature to have. So I tend to write at night, I think, because during the day there's too many distractions. I need to be like alone in a silent house where I can just focus on writing and not get distracted doing anything. So I think that the least glamorous part of my routine is that I'm like writing really late at night and then having really long lie-ins in the morning, which isn't necessarily very impressive a thing to be doing. And then the most glamorous part, I think, is when I get to do events, like especially conventions, when it's something like Comic-Con and you get to go in fancy dress and go on stage, and everyone in the audience has got these amazing costumes on, and they're all got like 15 books that they're getting signed by various authors, and there might be like Benedict Cumberbatch wandering past when you're on stage. Like that, I think, has been the thing that during this pandemic I've thought about the most, as the thing that I miss about the part of my job that involves going out into the world. Like obviously all the writing stuff is just me at home in my pajamas, but the bit where I get to meet crowds of people is something that I really, really miss, and I hope that we get to go back to soon. So that feels, right now from my pajamas, that feels very glamorous.